My name is Lu Dingzhen. Immediately after helping my wife, Shin Yushu, finalize the divorce lawsuit for her first love, the first thing I did was go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to file for a compulsory divorce. In the 1980s, divorce was still a rarity, let alone a unilateral filing like mine. After finishing the procedures, I returned to my workplace and unexpectedly ran into Shin Yushu standing with a man named Maijurin at the office gate. Shin Yushu had never visited my workplace before, so this time it must have been because of Maijurin's divorce case. Before I could speak, Maijurin bowed his head, his tone filled with hesitance. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't have been injured. You've been so busy running back and forth helping me prepare documents. It's all my fault and my ex-wife's fault. Before he could finish his sentence, Shin Yushu interrupted, You don't need to blame yourself. It's all the fault of Lu Hongying, that shameless person. Hearing her indifferent words, an indescribable sense of bitterness welled up in my heart. Maijurin looked at my forehead, where a bandage was still applied. Is your wound feeling any better? Before I could answer, Shin Yushu cut in, He's very strong, he's fine. He was just hit once. But you've suffered for so many days. Your headache probably hasn't subsided yet, has it? Watching the way she cared for Maijurin, I said nothing more, simply turning my head to leave. But Shin Yushu grabbed my hand. Didn't you say you always wanted to try riding in my car? I specifically drove here today to pick you up after work. Aren't you coming with me? Hearing her use the word specifically, I involuntarily remembered when Maijurin had just returned to the city. Shin Yushu had rushed to buy a car immediately to make it convenient to pick him up and drop him off. I once mentioned wanting to try riding in her car, only to receive a cold gaze. Why do you have to compare everything with Maijurin? I bought this car to pick him up, not for you. Since then, I never mentioned riding in the car again. And now, I wanted to even less. No need, I replied coldly, shaking off her hand and walking away without looking back. When I arrived at the court, I met the department head and submitted my application. I decided to accept my superior's nomination to go for advanced military studies. This is my application for the program. The department head looked at me hesitantly. Lu Dingzhen, going this time means being away for 3 years, and you'll be leaving in a few days. Have you discussed this with Commander Shen? The image of her cold face flashed in my mind. I regained my composure. This is for the good of the country. How could she possibly disagree? The department head didn't know I had filed for a compulsory divorce. He just happily patted my shoulder. Very good. Get ready. The upcoming exam will be very rigorous. Don't forget to take some time to say goodbye to Commander Shen. I nodded. 10 days. Enough time for me to end everything with her. I first met Shin Yushu 5 years ago. At that time, in response to national policy, I participated in the city's first public judicial examination. Shin Yushu was the person in charge of security for that exam, and her station was right next to mine. After passing, I started working at the court. During an evidence collection trip, I happened to meet Shin Yushu again while she was on duty. We became acquainted and quickly grew close. Not long after, she accepted my love, and 2 years later, we were married. Our peaceful married life lasted until 6 months ago, when Maijurin, her childhood sweetheart, returned to find her. I didn't expect that Maijurin, after being sent to the countryside during the Down to the Countryside movement, had married the village chief's daughter, Lu Hongying, to avoid hardship. But that marriage was unhappy. Lu Hongying suffered from schizophrenia and frequently beat and humiliated him. After the 3rd time he was hospitalized due to an assault, Maijurin heard from an acquaintance that Shin Yushu had become a commander. He quickly asked someone to send word, and not long after, Shin Yushu took leave to go to the countryside and bring him back to the city. That day was the first time I learned Shin Yushu had such a childhood best friend. From the day Maijurin returned, she was always like someone who had lost their soul, even forgetting our wedding anniversary, yet she would become restless with worry over anything related to Maijurin. Initially, I thought she just pitied Maijurin because of his miserable circumstances. But that thought quickly collapsed the day I went to my mother-in-law's house for a meal. I happened to overhear a conversation between her and her mother. If Dad hadn't forced us to break up back then, Maijurin wouldn't have had to go to the countryside. The fact that he's living so miserably is all my fault. I can't abandon him now. Her mother sighed. So what do you plan to do? Don't tell me you want to divorce Dingjun. Shun Yushu was silent for a long time, then said, I haven't thought about that yet. We'll see later. Hearing that, I could only find an excuse to leave. But deep down, I comforted myself that because she wasn't decisive, it meant she still had feelings for me. However, all hope completely vanished on the day of the court hearing. After the trial ended, because the Liu family had hidden Liu Hongying's illness, the court granted Mai Zhiren's divorce petition. Just as we left the courtroom, Liu Hongying screamed in rage, I don't agree to the divorce. Mai Zhiren, you are my husband, you can't leave me for the rest of your life. If you want to leave, it'll be in a coffin. Saying that, she pulled a brick from her bag and lunged toward Mai Zhiren. At that moment, I felt a powerful shove from behind. I was pushed forward, shielding Mai Zhiren, and took a direct, fatal blow from Liu Hongying's brick. As I began to drift toward unconsciousness, I still clearly heard Shun Yoshu's cold voice, Zhiren cannot take any more injury. Please endure this and protect him for me. I laughed bitterly in my heart. It turned out that in a single moment, my heart had completely died. When I woke up, I had no more hesitation. I turned and left the hospital, going straight to the Civil Affairs Bureau. From the moment on, I was determined to give up on her. That evening, as I was preparing dinner, Shun Yushu unexpectedly returned home early. Since Mai Zhiren's return, she had frequently come home very late, but today was the first time she returned before it was fully dark. She slammed the door, her face full of irritation. Those people have too much free time, all they do is gossip, she said spitefully. Life must be too comfortable now, they eat their fill and don't know what to do with themselves. I guessed the neighbors in the district were gossiping about her and Mai Zhiren again. Not long ago, I had been stopped after work by Mrs. Wong from the floor below. She looked at me with sympathy and said, Xiao Lu, I know you're an honest man, but your wife doesn't come home every day, aren't you worried? Be careful, or the fire behind your back will be too big to put out. I could only give a forced smile. They are just childhood friends, so it's understandable they are close, especially since Zhiren is having a hard time. Yushu helping him is normal. Please don't overthink it, ma'am. When I got home, I gently advised Shun Yushu to be mindful of keeping her distance, because at this time, even unmarried people being too close would easily spark rumors. However, she immediately flew into a rage. How can you be so narrow-minded and malicious? It's because of wicked-minded people like you that Zhiren and I are being talked about. Lu Dingjun, you are an official of the new era, yet your thoughts are this filthy. Since that day, I never mentioned the matter between them again. As I set the meal on the table, before I could even sit down, Shun Yushu spoke up, if Liu Hongying insists on not divorcing, can the court resolve it through compulsory means? My hand froze mid-air. So, she was again thinking of ways to help Mai Zhiren. It can, I replied curtly. Shun Yushu flashed a rare smile and scooped a spoonful of steamed egg for me. He doesn't know the process. Help him do it. An image flashed in my mind of the last time we were at her mother's house. Throughout the meal, she only talked about Mai Zhiren's hardships and how difficult the lawsuit was. Seeing that I was being ignored, my mother-in-law tried to intervene to change the atmosphere. Shun Yushu, remember that it's thanks to Dingjun preparing the documents that the lawsuit was resolved so smoothly. Shun Yushu replied nonchalantly, that's what he should do. Thinking back, indeed, everything I did was what I should do. I should help Mai Zhiren get a divorce, I should endure seeing my wife worry day and night for another man, and I should sacrifice everything for him. But fine, the thing I should do most right now is divorce her and let the two of them be together. I smiled faintly, fine, I will guide him through the compulsory divorce process. Hearing this, Shun Yushu abandoned her meal and left happily. I knew she was rushing to break the news to Mai Zhiren. Looking at the calendar on the wall, I saw that the day I leave for my studies in the capital coincides with my lunar birthday. I used a red pen to circle that date. Very soon, I will completely disappear from her life. The next morning, just as I finished preparing breakfast, Mai Zhiren burst in without even knocking. Brother Dingjun, sorry to bother you again. Shun Yushu quickly pulled out a chair for him, saying gently, don't be shy, just treat this as your own home. Eat whatever you like. With that, the two buns on the table were split. They happily ate porridge as if only they were the family. I felt nothing at all, quietly going into the room to start packing my luggage. A moment later, Shin Yushu walked in, her expression somewhat embarrassed. About this. Juren's time at the dormitory is almost up, and he hasn't found a place to stay yet. I thought we have a spare room, so maybe. I interrupted her. Serving the people is your responsibility. You can decide this for yourself. Hearing that, she breathed a sigh of relief. I've noticed you've changed a lot lately. I only curled my lip, have I? Waiting for her to leave, I looked at the closet, which was now half empty, and felt a sense of relief. There would soon be nothing of mine left here. Before stepping out of the room, I marked another red stroke on the calendar. Only 3 days left. The next morning, I woke up later than usual. As I stepped out of the room, Shin Yushu was already prepared for work. She furrowed her brows at me, her voice filled with irritation. You're up so late. How are my Juren and I supposed to have breakfast? I replied with indifference. My apologies. From now on, just eat at the military district canteen. They always serve breakfast without fail. As for my Juren's affairs, I don't care. Shin Yushu snapped angrily. He calls you elder brother, yet you can't even bother to show a little concern? I looked at her coldly. My mother only gave birth to me. I have no other siblings. Hearing this, she left in a huff, slamming the door behind her. For the next 3 days, Shin Yushu did not return home for meals. I knew she was waging a cold war against me. In the past, whenever she was angry, I was always the one to initiate a reconciliation. But now, I had no such intention. During those days, I took the opportunity to meet my Juren to hand him the procedures for the compulsory divorce. After listening to my detailed explanation, my Juren looked at me with a provocative gaze. Brother Dingjun, I'm about to move into your house. Do you think I can turn it into my home? I patted his shoulder and gave a faint smile. That is up to you. He looked at me with disdain and was about to say something when he suddenly glanced behind me. My Juren abruptly fell to the ground, crying out, "Ouch! That hurts." Immediately, Shin Yoshu's furious voice rang out from behind, "Lu Dingjun, what are you doing?" She rushed over to help my Juren up and then shouted in my face, "If you have an issue, say it to me directly. Why are you treating Juren so poorly?" I curled my lip in a cold smirk. Do you have proof? Don't forget the basic principle. The burden of proof lies with the accuser. Don't you know that? She seemed surprised by my retort, but still yelled, "Who else could have done it but you?" My throat tightened, but I forced a bitter smile. 5 years together, 2 years of dating and 3 years as husband and wife. All of it turned out, could not compare to one of my Juren's performances. Think whatever you want. I turned and walked away, my heart void of emotion. When I got home, I took a red pen and drew a large stroke across the calendar. Only 2 days left. The following day, I spent the afternoon visiting my mother-in-law. Throughout my 3 years as her son-in-law, she had always treated me very well. Since my father-in-law passed away last year, she had looked much frilier. During the meal, she told me many happy stories from Shin Yoshu's childhood, trying to use them to reconcile us. As I prepared to leave, I looked at her one last time and said softly, "Mother, please take care of your health. If you feel unwell anywhere, go to the hospital for a checkup immediately, don't delay." She smiled kindly and patted my hand. "You speak as if you're saying goodbye. I'm very healthy. In the future, I still have to help you and Yushu look after your children, right?" I turned my face away to hold back the tears. "Yes. Please don't see me out, Mother, it's getting cold." I hurried out of the house, silently apologizing to her in my heart. This was likely the last time I would ever call her mother. Upon returning home, I was surprised to see Shin Yushu sitting on the sofa as if she were waiting for me. Since my Juren's return, she almost never came home before midnight. Today, however, I paid her no mind, quietly walking into the study and sitting at the desk to review legal statutes. As winter set in, the cold caused me to have bouts of prolonged coughing. Just as I was about to get up for some water, a bowl of pickled peaches was placed on the desk. I looked up to see Shin Yushu with a look of hesitation. "I'm sorry, yesterday was Juren's fault." He told me he fell because he was careless, and that you didn't do it. I remained silent. She continued, "These are pickled peaches issued to the troop. I saved your portion. Your pipes are weak in the winter, eating these will be better for you." I gave a small nod of thanks. But as I picked up the spoon, I couldn't help but ask, "Is there something else regarding my Jiren?" Shun Yushu frowned, her voice full of annoyance. "Can I only come looking for you because of Jiren?" I replied flatly, "Is it not so?" Hearing that, she gave a soft sigh and said, "Tomorrow is your birthday. I've said it before, I will be with you for your birthday every year. Tomorrow at lunch after work, let's go eat at the state-owned restaurant. I heard they've just hired a new chef. The braised pork and lion's head meatballs are excellent." I hesitated for a few seconds before answering, "Fine." After all, tomorrow was the day I would depart. This lunch would serve as a final farewell. The next day, I arrived at the restaurant on time. When Shun Yushu arrived, she handed me a small gift box. "Happy birthday. This is a gift for you." For the first time in 3 years of marriage, she had bought me a gift. I opened the box. Inside was a pair of the latest men's leather shoes, but the size was not mine. It was my Jiren's size. I suppressed the bitterness in my heart and said simply, "Thank you." We had just started eating when her guard, Xiao Wang, rushed in. "Commander Shen, something is wrong. Mr. Mai is complaining of a severe headache. I wanted to take him to the hospital, but he insists on seeing you." Upon hearing this, Shun Yoshu's face showed clear conflict. She turned to me, her voice apologetic. "Dingjin, you go ahead and eat first. I'll go for a moment and then come back." I set my chopsticks down and replied calmly, "Just go." She left, leaving me to sit alone during the first birthday meal I had organized for myself. When I finished, I left the restaurant and gave the ill-fitting shoes to an old beggar on the street. I figured he needed them more than I did. Returning home, I pulled out the suitcase I had hidden under the bed. I took the wedding photo down from the wall and placed it on the table along with the signed divorce papers. Under the new policy, if both parties were state employees, they only needed to sign a divorce agreement to file and complete the procedure. With the papers I left behind, they would be able to be together officially. Before leaving, I turned to look at the house one last time. This was where I had lived for 3 years, but now it held no meaning. The next morning, on the way to the train station, I remembered I needed a passport-sized photo for my enrollment procedures in the capital. As I approached the photo studio, I saw through the glass Shun Yushu and my Jiren standing side by side, smiling for the camera. They looked so happy, like a perfect couple. I suddenly remembered the day this studio opened. I had suggested to Shun Yushu that we take a commemorative photo together. At the time, she had simply replied, "Why take photos when there's nothing to do? I hate taking photos." It turned out she didn't hate taking photos. The person standing next to her just hadn't been the right one. I turned away, a sudden surge of bitterness in my heart. In my hand was the wedding photo I once thought I would keep forever. Now, I tore it into pieces and threw it into the trash. From this moment on, Shun Yushu, there is nothing left between us. 2 days later, I arrived in the capital. This was the place I had always yearned for because it possessed the most complete legal system in the country. Standing before the gates of the intermediate court, I saw my senior, Bao Wanqing, waiting for me. She and I had studied together under the guidance of the same professor upon graduation. My teacher had many times advised me to go to the capital with Wanqing to work. He said, "Dingjin, the capital is in an era of legal reform. It is an opportunity for lawyers to demonstrate their talent. It would be a pity if you missed it because of family matters." But at that time, I had just proposed to Shun Yushu and her job could not be transferred elsewhere, so I chose to give up my dream and stay in my hometown. Now, I had the chance to start over. I smiled and greeted her, "Senior Bao Wanqing, long time no see." She smiled back, her eyes as warm as ever. "It's been so many years, and you still call me senior? Actually, we are the same age, just call me Wanqing, okay?" I remembered my teacher saying that Wanqing had skipped a grade, so we should have been in the same class. I smiled and replied, "All right. It is an honor to work with a famous judge like you." She shook her head, her face showing a hint of regret. If you had come to the capital back then, you would have achieved great things by now. I simply replied softly, everything is for the best. Now that I am here, it is still in time. She led me to the dormitory area and stopped in front of the room reserved for me. Wanqing helped me tidy up, even sewing up the tears in the blankets and pillows. I was surprised. You should rest, I can do this myself. Wanqing laughed. How can a man like you sew things neatly? Let me do it, it's no problem. I suddenly remembered the time the insignia on my shoulder strap fell off. I had asked Shun Yushu to sew it back on, but she had replied indifferently, my hands are for handling great affairs of the state, not for doing these trifles. Yet I knew full well that my Zhuren's shirt had been sewn by her own hands. That night, I had sat alone in the room trying to learn how to sew, even as the needle pricked my fingers until they bled. Watching Wanqing carefully prepare everything for me, a strange sense of warmth suddenly welled up in my heart, as if I had finally found a bit of peace after everything. When everything was finished, Wanqing smiled. Dingjin, you probably haven't had dinner yet, right? Let me treat you to some capital specialties. I nodded. All right, but this time, let it be my treat. She took me to a famous copper-pot hot pot restaurant in the city center. It was my first time eating hot pot, and the lively atmosphere combined with the flavor of the food made me feel much more at ease. After the meal, we strolled around the streets when a sudden cold wind blew past, causing me to cough repeatedly. Wanqing immediately ran into a nearby shop and returned with a black wool scarf. She gently wrapped the scarf around my neck. This is an induction gift for you. I noticed you're prone to coughing when it's cold, so keeping warm is most important. I was stunned. Until now, no one had ever paid such attention to my health. Thank you, Wanqing. I lightly touched the soft wool, feeling the warmth spread from the scarf. The next day, I began my work with a completely new spirit. I spent most of my time researching laws and cases, trying to make up for the 3 years I had lost. After a few months, with Wanqing's support, I successfully completed my first independent case. 3 months later, my old department head from back home came to the capital for work. He pulled me aside into a quiet corner and asked pensively, Dingjin, tell me the truth. Does Shin Yushu know you moved here? She just came to me asking for your whereabouts. I gave a faint, indifferent smile. I left a signed divorce agreement before I departed. Surely she understands what that means. The department head sighed. I heard she still hasn't signed the papers. Is there truly no chance left between you two? I smiled sadly. None at all. My love for her ran dry a long time ago. 2 months later, I received my first letter from Shin Yushu. As expected, she had discovered my current address. In the letter, she wrote, Dingjin, I do not agree to a divorce. Weren't we living perfectly well together? I never had any intention of leaving you. My relationship with my Zhuren is strictly a childhood friendship and nothing more. I promise from now on to keep my distance from him. Please come home, I will always wait for you, waiting until the day you return. Inside the envelope was a reprinted copy of our wedding photo. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer without replying. I didn't keep the wedding photo either. To me, it no longer held any value. I remembered when the department head asked me, can you and Commander Shun truly not reconcile? I think she still seems to have feelings for you. I only curled my lip and smiled. It's impossible, because what I once had with her is gone. Work in the capital was busy but smooth. I participated in many cases and had the opportunity to hone my practical experience. However, because I was still a newcomer, I was not yet permitted to preside over a trial and only assisted. I told myself I had to work harder to make up for the 3 years I had wasted. Every month, Shin Yushu sent me a letter. The content was always repetitive. She refused to divorce, was always waiting for me, and promised to change. But I never replied once. My feelings were exhausted. There was no reason left to hold on. One afternoon, after completing a mediation case, I walked back to the office with Bao Wanqing. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out from behind, Dingjin. I turned to find Shin Yoshu's familiar face. She looked more haggard than before, her eyes betraying deep exhaustion. I looked at her in silence, not knowing what to say. After a moment of silence, she spoke. Did you receive the letters I sent? I didn't see a reply, so I thought perhaps I had the wrong address. I replied in a calm voice. The address was correct. I read them, but there was nothing to say in return. She was stunned for a moment, her voice trembling. I don't want to divorce. We don't have any serious problems. My Jérôme and I are just friends. Nothing has ever crossed the line. I promise I won't let him bother us anymore. Please, give me a chance. I looked directly into her eyes, my voice cold. But I want a divorce. My words were like a knife's edge, leaving her dazed. A moment later, tears began to fall down her face. Why? Why do you want to leave me? Do you truly have no feelings left for me at all? I lowered my head, my voice slightly shaking. I once did, but you destroyed everything with your own hands. She was about to say more, but her guard Shaoli rushed over. Commander Shen, the train is about to depart. If we don't go now, we won't make it. Shen Yushu stood there, her eyes filled with despair. Before leaving, she turned to look at me, her voice wavering. Dingjin, next month is your birthday. I will definitely come to the capital to be with you. We will talk again then. I watched her figure fade into the distance, my heart without a single ripple. From a distance, Bao Wanqing's voice pulled me back to reality. Dingjin, are you okay? I looked over and saw her eyes were red with emotion. She had heard the entire conversation. I gave a slight, faint smile. I'm fine. These matters are no longer worth mentioning. Wanqing gently took my hand. Meeting the wrong person isn't scary. What matters is that you will meet someone who truly loves you. Her words were like a warm flame, dispelling the lingering cold in my heart. My birthday arrived, but Shen Yushu did not appear. Instead, my colleagues in the office organized a small party for me. Bao Wanqing brought a cake and set it before me. Happy birthday, Dingjin. You won't have to be lonely anymore. Deeply moved, I blew out the candles and made a silent wish that in the days to come, I would always live in peace and happiness. Indeed, even without Shen Yushu, I was living well. Shen Yushu did not come on my birthday. And from then on, her monthly letters abruptly stopped. This did not surprise me. After all, she had no more reason to keep writing to me. Half a year later, my old department head came to the capital on business. He secretly called me out and handed me a piece of paper. When I opened it, I realized it was the divorce certificate for Shen Yushu and me, dated exactly on my birthday. The department head sighed softly. After you left, Commander Shen and my Jérôme got married. It caused quite a stir back home. Apparently, someone reported them for an inappropriate relationship, so the higher-ups demanded it be resolved immediately to avoid trouble. She had to agree to the divorce from you, but because of that scandal, Commander Shen was demoted 2 ranks. I held the divorce certificate with no particular feeling, only giving a slight nod. That is for the best. The department head placed a hand on my shoulder in encouragement. From now on, you can live your own life. After he left, I strolled alone through the dormitory grounds. The night sky was full of stars. I looked up and took a deep breath, feeling as though the final burden had been lifted. Lu Dingjin, from today, you are truly free. Live for yourself and live a life worth having. While lost in thought, a hand gently patted my shoulder. Turning around, I saw Bao Wanqing with a kind smile. I just saw the department head leave. Are you all right? I held up the divorce papers and smiled lightly. I am officially divorced. Wanqing looked at me for a long time, her eyes shimmering. She stepped closer and spoke seriously. Dingjin, I like you. I know saying this now is a bit sudden, but I've waited a long time. I don't want to wait any longer. I was stunned. During our 2 years working together, I had always sensed her feelings, but because I wasn't divorced, I didn't dare cross that line. Now that everything was over, I could no longer hide. My voice trembled slightly. Do you truly want to be with me? Without a moment's hesitation, she nodded. I do. Your past is only a part of your life, not the whole. I don't care that you were once married or that your current position isn't as high as mine. The only thing I regret is that I didn't speak up sooner so we wouldn't have wasted so much time. I smiled softly, feeling each of her words soothe the wounds on my heart. From that day on, Bao Wanqing and I were officially together. We spent much time talking about everything from poetry to legal cases. The more we spoke, the more I realized I had found a feeling I had never known before: security. Previously, when I was with Shen Yushu, I always lived with a sense of unease, fearing I would be abandoned. But with Wanqing, I felt absolute trust and a complete love. A year later, my advanced studies in the capital concluded. I began looking for ways to stay and work long-term, but Wanqing took my hand and whispered, "Let's go back to your hometown. I am from there too. Contributing to our home is my responsibility." Her words warmed my heart. I squeezed her hand and said softly, "Thank you, Wanqing. Meeting you is the greatest luck of my life." Together, we returned home on the train after 3 years away. Our hometown had changed much. My workplace quickly assigned me a new apartment. Wanqing and I began slowly buying furniture, building a home of our own. One day after work, I went with Wanqing to buy wedding rings. As we left the store, she told me to wait a moment while she went back to pick something up. While waiting, I witnessed a chaotic scene on the roadside. Looking closely, I realized it was my Zhiren arguing with a street vendor. A moment later, Shen Yushu appeared, running over in anger. "Zhiren, have you had enough?" My Zhiren turned toward her with a sarcastic tone. "Stop lecturing me. If you had arranged a job for me, I wouldn't have to be out on the streets like this." She went silent for a moment, her voice choked with emotion. "Do you know? If you hadn't slandered me to my superiors, I wouldn't have had to marry you." Hearing this, my Zhiren laughed coldly, pushed her hard to the ground, and walked away without looking back. Wanqing came back out and saw me still standing there. She asked gently, "What are you looking at?" I smiled slightly, took her hand, and said, "Nothing. Let's go home." On the way home, the image of Shen Yushu falling to the ground remained etched in my mind. However, the feelings of pain or lingering regret I once had were completely gone. All that remained was tranquility. I gripped Bao Wanqing's hand, feeling the warmth from her, knowing that this was the future I truly needed. A week later, I saw Shen Yushu again. This time, she sought me out. I was waiting for Wanqing to buy groceries in the supermarket when I suddenly heard a call, "Dingzhen." I turned to see her standing not far away. She looked much thinner, her face tired and full of sorrow. She stepped forward, trying to force a smile. "Long time no see. How are you?" I gave a slight nod. "I'm well, thank you." She looked at the ring on my hand and went silent for a moment before asking, "Is this?" I replied briefly, "It's a wedding ring. Wanqing and I are getting married soon." She was startled, but tried to maintain her composure. "Congratulations. Can I speak with you privately for a moment?" I didn't want to drag it out, so I nodded. We sat on a nearby bench. Shen Yushu took an old calendar from her bag and placed it on the table. "This is the calendar I found after you left. The days you marked. I once thought those were days you were looking forward to a birthday or some anniversary of ours. Only later did I understand those were the days you were determined to leave me." I looked at the calendar, my heart without a single ripple. She continued, her voice choked, "Dingzhen, I've lost you, haven't I? I don't have another chance, do I?" I sighed softly, my voice calm. "I am getting married next month. We no longer have any connection." She gave a faint smile, her eyes drenched. "Is that so? That's good. Congratulations." She stood up and took a small bag of oranges from her purse. "These are oranges I just bought. I remember you once said you really liked oranges, so I bought some for you." I looked at the bag of oranges and smiled slightly. "Keep them for yourself. Actually, I don't like oranges. Back then, it was only because the troupe usually only issued oranges, and I didn't want to be wasteful, so I said that. What I like are apples. But that doesn't matter anymore." She was stunned, holding the bag of oranges as she walked away. I watched her figure disappear, feeling nothing but relief. When Wanqing came out, she stood under a tree, looking at me with gentle eyes. I walked over and took her hand. She smiled softly and pulled out a bag of apples. I know you like apples, so I bought some for you. Oh, and by the way, how many children do you think we'll have? Do you want a boy or a girl? I laughed, my eyes full of love. Whatever you want. We walked away, the afternoon sunlight stretching our shadows into one. I knew this was the true happiness I had long awaited.